Hi guys, and welcome to the video. So for this video I have my own Nintendo Switch, and it's a faithful little console really. As you can see, it's seen better days. I did buy this second hand. However, there were a few issues with the Joy-Cons. These aren't actually, this one's my Joy-Con, this one is not my Joy-Con. I borrowed it off my children just to test this issue out. Now the issue I'm having with this is the Joy-Cons are randomly disconnecting throughout gameplay, which leads me to suspect it may be the Joy-Cons. However, and this fails this side a lot. It disconnects a lot. So I'm testing this Joy-Con and it's doing exactly the same thing, which means the problem is in the Switch. It may be in the Joy-Con rail. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hit some gameplay and we'll see if it disconnects. And as you can see, I'm twisting the console slightly just to really test these connections. I'm fairly certain we've got a little bit of liquid damage in those rails. I'm going to do a little bit of a wobble test as well. See, I could be quite happily playing a game and all of a sudden one or both of the Joy-Cons will just disconnect without warning. Usually when I'm in a fight for my life. Yeah, it seems to be fine now. Of course it's fine. I'm recording. Let's do a little wiggle test. See, what will happen is when a Joy-Con disconnects, you'll get this screen come up. So you press the two controller buttons and press A when you're ready. And the problem is, when a Joy-Con disconnects, it will pause your game and take it completely out of the immersion. I believe I'm actually out of ammo at this point. My console is calling me a liar. Okay, so we're super zoomed in. I'm going to switch the light on. And we're going to shine the light in the Joy-Con rail. It doesn't look too bad. I don't know whether you'll be able to pick this up, but you might just be able to see some of the pins there. If you look, you can see there seems to be some kind of corrosion on the pin. If you count third from this side, you can see there's a little bit of discoloration there. So I think that this switch needs to be taken apart and we need to get these contacts cleaned up. So that's what I'm going to do now. Okay, so first things first, we want to switch this off completely. I'm going to focus on this side. I'm going to clean both sides, both rails, but I'm going to focus mainly on this side because this side is the problem side. And for this, I'm going to need my trusty screwdriver. It already has the Y piece on it, so let's get this back off and see what we're dealing with here. Okay, so that is all the screws out. Well, let's just lift the back case off. I'm going to clean away some of this dust. I don't know how that's got in there. I'm usually much better at taking care of my consoles, so I'll be giving that a damn good clean. I'm not actually sure if I've had this open. I don't think I have, which is interesting. So yeah, let's get inside and see what's going on. I hadn't realised just how filthy this thing is. Looks like this will be half a cleaning video. Okay, so I think that's all the screws. We'll just lift this SD card reader out. Wow, that's filthy. It is truly filthy. I'm going to give this a damn good clean with some IPA, I think. So, let's get these screws out for the rail. I think we'll do one rail at a time so we don't lose screws and such. Okay, let's get this rail out nice and carefully. We don't want to force it. Disconnect the battery. Move that out of the way. Okay. Out pops the pin, and out pops the ribbon cable. Oh yeah, there it is. So yeah, there's corrosion there, quite a lot of corrosion, and that's what's causing the bad connection. Hopefully you can pick it up on there. It's right there. Let me shine a bit more light on it. That might help. Can you see it? Wow. So yeah, we're going to clean that up with some isopropyl alcohol, I think. Try and get that looking much better. I think the board could do with a bit of a clean as well, because there's a lot of dust in here and all sorts. I've definitely not had this apart. Definitely not. Isopropyl alcohol is your best friend when it comes to this sort of job. So you just get a little bit on a toothbrush. Don't need to go mad, okay? Let me pull this in. There we go. What I'm talking about is this pin here. It's ever so slightly blackened. That is actually quite a bit of corrosion on that pin. I do have a donor switch available that may work a bit better. Okay, so we want to set those screws back in place. I think that is basically it back together. I think everything is where it's supposed to be. Very important that these rails stay in place. Okay, so that's all good. Okay, hopefully, as you can see, the vents are pretty clear, which is good. Okay, I'm just going to have a look down this side to make sure this side isn't corroded. Yeah, that's corroded. I'm going to do this side as well. Okay, this one's a tad more delicate because the ribbon cable is actually wrapped around. So again, we're going to push this pin through and release this out. Again, if all else goes wrong, I do have a spare unit. And there we go again. I'll zoom in for you so you can see it. Corrosion on this side as well, which will not be helping matters in the slightest. So these pins are always good to check. You have corrosion there. So again, isopropyl alcohol. So all we want to do is gently brush those pins. Don't give it too much force, because if you do, you could damage the pins. But just nice little cleaning. Oh, that's miles better. Smash in. We get the pins back in the housing and push that pin straight through. So now we want to fold that over in much the same way as it was before. It just involves turning it around a little bit. There you go. Almost as if it never came out. So I'll put the screws back in and we'll go from there. I'll say this for repairs. If something isn't working properly and you're like me, you have a natural curiosity to figure out why. What could make it not work? A lot of people will go, oh, it's broke, it don't work. But you have to have a certain curiosity, don't you, in order to work on things like this. I'll put the battery back in. Oh, that is actually quite dry thermal paste. Uh-oh. You know what that means? That means we need to replace the thermal paste. So I'm going to do that now. Yeah, that is almost solid. Like I said, I bought this switch second hand as a fixer-upper, and didn't work on the switch because the only problem was with the Joy-Cons themselves. So I didn't bother opening up the switch. I wish I had now, because look what I found. This is just dry as anything. So we're going to put some fresh thermal paste on. Look, it's come off solid. Absolutely solid. And clean that off with isopropyl alcohol. Get rid of all of this. Bit of cotton bud action, as you Americans call them, Q-tips. We call them cotton buds. Okay. That's now clean and dry. I'm going to get my thermal paste. And for this I'm using MX4. It's pretty good stuff. Arctic MX4 that is. And let's see if we can do the perfect amount of thermal paste. I think that's pretty perfect. I think Steve from tronicsfix would be proud of that. Battery is reconnected, all the ribbon cables are clear. I've given it a bit of a blowout. I'm actually satisfied that that is pretty clean. I'm just going to give this a quick wipe down though, and that's just with some paper towel. Yes, a little wipe down. Doesn't have to be absolutely spot on. It's always nice just to have a relatively clean console. Get rid of all of that. I might clean that with a bit of IPA actually. Okay, I'm happy with that. I'm going to get this reassembled. So we're going to put the back plate on first, and then I'm going to clean up this cover, which is filthy. Thermal paste is in. Everything looks dandy to me. This can be an absolute pain in the backside. So I tend to just peel it off, line it up, peel off the backing, get it all lined up. Don't force this, of course, because it will really ruin your day if you get it wrong. I'm just going to give this a clean with the same toothbrush, just to get some of this dust out. Okay, that's looking loads better. Okay, the back is clean and it's going back on. Goes together quite well, nicely. No bulges or anything like that. Fantastic. So we're going to go for the back screw first, which is the smallest of the screws. Okay, that's back together. Let's give it a go. Fresh thermal paste and cleaned up Joy-Con rails. Just so you can see, this is the thermal paste. This is just basically thermal putty now. Okay, that one connects up. And that one connects up. So I'm going to do some testing off camera to make sure that this is absolutely working fine, and I will let you know at the end of the video if it is working fine. And alas, it has not solved the problem. I just had this show up. I found it very disheartening. Well, that's a bit annoying, isn't it? So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to replace both rails just to be sure that everything's going to be okay. As I mentioned earlier, I have a donor switch. So I'm going to remove both rails from this switch. I may have to take out the board from my switch, basically to route the cable. So I'm going to start by getting these rails off. Okay, that actually came off really easily. I think it's only stuck down on one place here. Okay, that is the other rail off. So we're done with this donor switch. This switch, if you're interested or curious at all, had a faulty CPU and it was unfixable, so I decided to keep it around for spare parts. I don't actually know if the screen is working. It'd be interesting to find out, but I need to find a switch with basically a broken screen. So we'll find out at some point, and I will do a video on it once I can find one. So it's time to get my switch back apart. So off come the Joy-Con rails. I'm going to have a bit of thermal paste overspill. I will clean that up before I continue so I don't forget. And again, we're going to clean it up with some isopropyl alcohol. But for reference, that thermal paste was indeed the perfect amount. Just clean it up off this as well. So you're going to disconnect the battery. Pull the cables out of the way. Try not to give it too much force. And we're going to want to flip this up and flip this up as well. That gets flipped up that way. And this gets flipped up that way. Okay. We'll very gently pull the ribbon cable out, making sure not to damage anything on the way out. Just going to turn this around so I can get a better view of it. There we go. Brilliant. There is a small amount of adhesive here, so I'm just going to run the pick sideways, just being very careful not to grab any wires along the way, and just coax it up a little bit. Excellent. That's free, so we'll get the rails out. As you can see, they have a slight white head. I'm going to utilize the screws from the other switch as well. Okay, so we can just pull the left one. It's absolutely fine. We'll put that out of the way. So this one doesn't get routed anywhere, as you can see. It literally just lifts out. Old rails out, new rails in. So I just want to make sure it's all lined up physically first. And we're going to stick some screws in. I don't go too tight with these rail screws until I've got the rail in place with all 4 screws in, because you don't want to misalign it and tighten it, because you could damage the threads. These screws are immensely fiddly. Okay, that rail was in place. Going to fit the other one now. I think I'm going to route this one first. So I just put my finger in thermal paste. What a dodo. Oh. Oh boy, I hate it when that happens. Let's give it a go. Okay. pain in the ass. Pardon my French. So fiddly. Okay, so the rails are in place. I'm going to put these ribbon cables back in. I'm going to use my dental tweezers though, as they're the slightly better ones. So this needs to go down here. You have to be very careful when you're manipulating these ribbon cables because they are very delicate, okay? Very delicate. Very gently push that tab down. Okay. And we have to approach this from the other side, I believe. Oh, brilliant. That's in there. And again, very gently push that clip over. There we go. And reconnect the battery. Let's get the back plate back on. The thermal paste should make contact again. There's plenty there, as Steve would say, the perfect amount. Okay, down that goes. Let's get these back screws back in. Again, I do have a spare SD card slot, so if I damage this one, it's fine. I've got a replacement, but just be very careful and make sure it's lined up. That's the important thing. If it's not lined up, don't push. So this tiny screw here, it is absolutely immensely small. As you can see, it is tiny. So that always goes in the SD card slot. Oh, you absolute. This is what happens when you're trying to make a YouTube video after doing a full day at work. You get a little tired. Things don't line up correctly. Oh, screws drop and annoy you. Just be very cautious of dropping a screw down that vent. You really see the difference with that screw and the colour of it. It makes me think this has had some liquid contamination, but I don't think it's caused too much damage. Perhaps just in the Joy-Con rails. But we'll see how these do. If you are new to the channel, then please consider subscribing. I do little repair videos now and then. I'm looking to do a lot more. I'm just waiting for stock to come my way. So please hit that like button and consider subscribing. It would really help the channel to grow. Back in with the SD card. And back on with the back stand. Back on with the Joy-Cons. And I'm going to once again test this off screen, so I will be back to let you know if it's worked. And well, I have tested this switch for an hour. There has been no disconnecting whatsoever. On average, it was disconnecting every 5 or 10 minutes with certain movements of the Joy-Cons. Now it's not disconnecting at all. It is absolutely fine. There is no issues. I'm happy that it's fixed. So to summarize what we did in this video, we cleaned both rails with some isopropyl alcohol to try and clean the contacts. There were some very filthy contacts there, and I think some very badly corroded contacts in there, in this side here especially. So we put it back together and it didn't work. So we took out the rails from a donor switch, put them into here, and this is now working absolutely fine. It was also very dusty inside, very dirty. Obviously I hadn't had it open since I bought it second hand, which was pretty much bad on me. However, We gave it a clean out, replaced the thermal paste. It's running a lot cooler now, and there's a noticeable difference. So I'm really happy with this repair. Generally speaking, it's a good switch. It works well. This Joy-Con's starting to give way a little bit. I may have to replace the rail inside this Joy-Con, simply because all I have to do is apply a bit of pressure and it pops out. So I may do a repair video on that as well, just to replace the inner rail. They're relatively cheap on eBay. So yeah, one very fixed switch. I can now game uninterrupted on my Switch. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel. I make repair videos and I also do live gaming streams. I do occasionally do reviews of certain TV shows and movies. So yeah, hit subscribe if you're interested and want to see more content like this. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
I need the silence, stop the violence of the war in my head. Time's the healer, the eraser of all done and said. And as I fall back to my shelter, I know